around that Varus in the late game, but the Yunara also taken off the board for Assum, who has been very consistent there. Notably, Xin Zhao left available. Other power picks are very much still on the table as well. Rumble taken off the board. It's actually going to be the Mbessa as kind of the flex pick here for BLG that is first picked, and that makes it really interesting when you look at where this team has prioritized putting Mbessa throughout this split up until this point. Shun has not yet played a game of it. Ben has only played one throughout 2026, and so you would imagine this could be around the top side, but again, a very strong start. And just saying, hey, if you know, we know you're not going to take the Xin Zhao, we can save that for a later draft and, you know, kind of force your hand here with this flex.
Yeah, I like this idea. It seems like a good confidence pick in theory for Bin, like you said. Flex pick does have to be acknowledged. Vi opens up the possibility for an Ahri for Guwon and Care, a combination that has been stellar for them, and Vi, one of Guwon's best junglers during the split. Ahri, same thing for Care. One of the things that I want to throw out there, we should keep our eyes out for a Bard. That's obviously available. Nobody's banning Bard, but both these supports play a lot of Bard.
Yeah, great call out. Bard has been massive for both of these teams in particular. It's going to be the Vi Azir duo that we've seen very familiarly out of NIP. These are two of the most played champions for this team in general, but certainly for these two players, even going back multiple years, Care has really been known for his Azir play for quite a long time. Makes a lot of sense, but this is kind of the benefit, again, of saying, hey, we know you're going to pick Vi or Jarvan or one of these, you know, easier to initiate kind of champions. We can leave our jungle pick for now and kind of have a better idea of where your middle of the map is going to stand. If you want to go for something aggressive like the Pantheon or Xin Zhao, I think that would make a lot of sense in this comp, and you can even pair it up with something like a Talia, or it's going to be the Ziggs locked in for Knight. He's one of the premier Ziggs players here in the LPL, and he's going to have a lot of pressure into that Azir.
I mean, that's exciting. Also, technically a flex pick, you know, like you can move Ziggs around the map, but the fact that Knight is so prominent on this champion does make the Azir Ziggs matchup look really good. You got a lot of long range into each other, and Knight, of course, very confident, you have to imagine, coming into this matchup. Support picked up here as a Poppy gets locked in. Again, technically flex pick. You know, you can move Poppy around, she can multi-roll, but I'm feeling good about support Poppy.
Yeah, I think support Poppy is definitely doable. I think top lane Poppy is also very possible here for Hoya. It's something that he's played in years past, and Poppy into Mbessa is a very good matchup for Poppy. It is truly one of like the hard counters on the top side of the map if you wanted to go in that direction. So again, it just kind of opens up more options for this team to stay flexible as we get into the ban phase. That means bot lane is going to be the priority, and BLG believe that is top lane. I would tend to agree with them here as they start to ban out the Nautilus. I imagine we're going to see even more engaged supports because you do already have a lot of ways to be able to play make around the map. So the Nautilus, the Rakan, definitely could see those bans coming through against Zhuo.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice pick for NIP because, as we mentioned, you can pick it up in support. It's also a good matchup in top, and it really depends on who ends up feeling more comfortable at the end of the draft, giving NIP a little bit more flexibility, and also not revealing too much of what they want to go with. Poppy generically is a great pick into BLG's composition, so now, as we enter the second part of the draft, they'll get to decide where they actually want to place that piece and where it gives them the most advantage. We are seeing a lot of bot lane focus with Kalista, Ezreal, and Lucian all taken out, and no ADs picked up for either side yet, unless, of course, we're flexing Ziggs, which is possible. Flex draft.
Of course, yes. Ziggs can always still go to the bot lane, but I think it's really important to point out that not only do they believe it's going mid lane, but they're targeting a lot of these early game champions that are going to be able to stop push, and that lends credence to the idea that they want to win lane on the bottom side, and they lock that in with the Ashe. Seraphine is on the table. That has been a dynamic bot lane duo for multiple teams throughout this year, and it's really, really tough to stop. BLG kind of need more damage on the bottom side of the map here. I'd be surprised if they went for something like a Jhin. I think it makes more sense to potentially go for something like a Misfortune in this particular instance that can give you early game power, or just go for scaling in general, but if they do want to go for something passive, things like Jhin are on the table, and that will be the lock. It's going to be that Jhin Bard to allow that playmaking to come in from on.
I don't think I've ever experienced more of a roller coaster of emotions in a draft than going from the, I don't know about Jhin, to the, oh my god, yes, we got the Bard. And we're going to follow that up with a Seraphine, with the Ashe Seraphine that you teased earlier. This, of course, very, very powerful. I still have my doubts about the Jhin, though. As you raised, this Jhin does feel like a lower damage pick, and to me, BLG have gone, well, we're playing through topside this game. That's just what's happening.
Well, what I think is really interesting about this draft for BLG is their identity is really clear. Ziggs is going to be playing side lanes, and Bessa is going to be isolated and hopefully going to be in a position where she can take over in team fights. And Bard's going to be everywhere. This game is very, very important for On. Him and Shun need to link up. But when you look at NIP on the other side of this, their scaling is clear. You have a winning bot side 2v2 with the Ashe and Seraphine that's been super consistent, a Vi that can make plays, a Poppy counterpick on the top side, and a scaling Azir that should be the strongest champion in the late game. This is certainly a good draft for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but it definitely comes down to how they play these side lanes against a Ziggs and an Mbessa with a Bard moving everywhere around the map.
And this really speaks to exactly what we talked about in the pregame. BLG have taken a composition that is going to, in a winning scenario, force NIP into uncomfortable decisions, not the other way around. I think this is really important when we come back to what would be really good for NIP. What would really work for them is to force decisions out of BLG, at least on a compositional level. BLG should be able to do that much earlier in the game than NIP will.
Definitely true. BLG are going to have a lot of tempo in this one, a lot of control through that Pantheon and Bard combo. If they use it correctly, this can be a game that ends incredibly fast. If they don't, they could actually be in some trouble as this game continues to go along. This Azir Ashe combo is going to get online. And when you look at this draft, for as much as we talk about their ability to play the early game, there is no true frontliner in the late game if you don't end up getting those early leads. The onus is on BLG. They would have it no other way.
Yeah. It's terrifying game one of BLG versus NIP.
The Gyos coming out. They're coming out strong for this playoff debut for both of these teams. A lot of good damage down onto Viper early on is going to make these trades a little bit easier. And this is such an impressive bot lane duo here with the Ashe and Seraphine. If you want to see full health bars for Viper and On, you're probably not going to be seeing it a lot in the early game in this one.
They are seemingly pretty comfortable stepping up, though, and Zhuo gonna lay down a little bit of damage, but ultimately NIP coming out slightly the worst end of the trade, at least at level 1. We'll see how BLG and NIP face off here. I'm noticing up top side as well that we've got some shove from NIP, giving a decent amount of priority to Guwon early in the game.
Yes, we get our customary trade of heals on the bottom side that has become so normalized, level 2 hit by the bot lane, but definitely the point out here that with Poppy on the top side, there's basically no play to be made from either side on this laning phase. It's going to be kind of hard to dive in Mbessa with the Poppy. Not impossible, but certainly more difficult, and it's going to be even more difficult for the Mbessa to be able to get into that laning phase. You can see our LPL predictor even looks at NIP as a pretty big favorite here. I don't see the graph going quite that way. I think they definitely need to make sure they can scale this game out, but again, we talked about it. The onus is on BLG, and the onus is on Shun, who we highlighted on this Pantheon. He's been so good at these mid-game skirmishers. He's going to need a big one here today as he clears down to the bot side.
One of the things that I think we should really talk about in the game, especially before we hit level 6, is how much level 6 changes the game for BLG, especially in terms of range. They have not global, semi-global, pretty big ults is the best way to put that on most people except for Bin. Bin's is the shortest range ultimate in this game for BLG. Everybody else is going to be able to hit you from river if they really want to, and that is a terrifying possibility, especially when you consider that Bin is meant to be a very strong part of this composition.
It's never a good sign when you have to say that, oh, well, the Mbessa is the least of my worries for a long-range engage. That's never, like, a good feeling as Shun makes his way flash.
I care. Just died. He just dies at level 1. First blood, but answered by Guwon as the junglers come out swinging.
It's a trade of existences in the mid lane here as both junglers are able to pick up kills, but Shun gets the first blood. That's important. Guwon, have tempo on this crab, but Shun wants to keep going.
Who got that? Smite came down. Ended up going over to Shun. Nice job. Gets away with the scuttle crab. Wins the top side, and now Guwon thinks about jumping back into the mid lane, but Knight's a little bit too far back. Already kind of a bloodbath when we consider what could have happened in this early game with two mid laners AFK farming against each other. That does not happen. We get some early visits, and it's nice to see out of Guwon.
Yeah, I'm actually really, really happy for both of these teams on that trade. Obviously, Shun ends up getting out a little bit better because of the first blood gold, but Guwon getting gold at all onto the Azir here, even the assist gold, is really important for scaling this game out. You got to be able to play side lanes effectively, and I think that aggressive play ends up doing that. Bin with the shove in right now. Again, this top lane is just going to be relatively neutralized. Poppy is going to have a really easy time shutting down any aggression from the Mbessa, but I'm going to be looking at these timers. 30 seconds on the first dragon spawning. How early do you want to play towards that now that you have some kill gold in the pocket of both of these junglers and that they're quite accelerated? Bot lane actually doing relatively well for BLG in this instance. It's all going to be about whether or not the Bard wants to roam and move around or if they want to prioritize this objective early.
Yeah, they've really sustained up quite well for BLG. Bin still not having a great time. This early Mbessa lock-in was a confidence pick and can still be a monster later, but man, does Hoya feel good about the Poppy matchup for right now. As Dragon is spawned, we'll get to see who's actually prioritizing this early. I almost think we could wait till Void Grubs if we really wanted to.
Definitely possible for both of these teams, as Hoya says. You know, Bin, I'm crashing this gigantic wave onto your tower. You get none of it. That is a massive, massive level 6 spike for Hoya that puts Bin even further behind. Definitely not ideal, but, you know, just a funny little Poppy interaction that we continue to get. I'll direct your attention down to the bottom of your screen. Knight with a pretty decent gold lead.
Guwon ganking Knight. Actually, this could turn into a kill. Level 6 for Knight. Uses the flash early, but Guwon will connect. Care not able to land any follow-up damage on that, but Knight severely chunked out with no teleport in the mid lane, and as you mentioned, objectives up.
Yeah, I think that's huge. That's a great play from Guwon. I was pointing out that Knight was the X factor here. Takes him away from the board as we get some skirmishing on the bot side here. They're going in.
No level 6s, however, for NIP, so no Enchanted Crystal Arrow, no Encore to follow it up. Means that ultimately just gets them a little bit of river priority, but not much more. We'll see if it turns into a dragon or not, as Guwon is hovering in the area, and is going to choose to start this one up. So first dragon should go to NIP. I'm not seeing I'm not seeing contests, but maybe a deadly flourish or something.
Would be funny if we got a Jhin steal here, but no way to contest with Knight having to back off of that fantastic gank. Once again, it's Guwon who's actually setting the pace in the early game. We talk about the scaling from NIP, but so much of that comes down to their ability to take towers and play these side lanes and be able to shut down this Ziggs. When you're able to take him out of the equation in these exchanges, things get a ton easier for you to be able to control the map. A dragon stacking starting early, and especially because Void Grubs have not spawned yet, you can really prioritize both of these objectives with the combat power that Poppy provides you on the top side.
You're going to want to keep your eyes out in the mid lane in about a minute. That's when Kair's flash is going to be up, and as we know, Knights will not. Shun, however, having access to level 6 means that Grand Starfall anywhere on the map is a possibility, and that includes defensively in the mid lane, should he wish.
Definitely got to be scared, and you talked about it here for BLG. It's not just the Grand Starfall. You're talking Ziggs coming down. You're talking Bard being able to be anywhere on the map. Their ability to make plays is incredibly high. It's just about making sure that you pick the correct plays, and I think that's what I'm going to be watching here. Junglers on different sides of the map. We talked about those grubs in 30 seconds. Right now, at the very least, BLG posturing on the top side with that Mbessa push as we get a bit of a trade onto the bottom side here, but overall, BLG doing a very good job to kind of weather the storm. See if they can start making plays on their power spikes here at level 6.
I would even go a little bit further. They've not just weathered the storm, they've done quite well in terms of their tower plating, at least being indicative of their performance in lane. This is looking significantly better for BLG than it has any right to.
Completely agree. I mean, your biggest worry in this draft was the Ashe Seraphine being able to snowball this early game and not giving you a chance to utilize a lot of those resources, but even giving over that first dragon, you still have that gold lead, however slight onto Viper. Bare minimum, it's neutral. Bin clearing out the wave here is going to get a little bit low, but again, we're talking about Void Grubs on the map. Bin with the shove on the top side. Hoya will have teleport up a little bit earlier if they wanted to potentially go for, a fight here. I don't think that looks like the direction, as both Bard and Vi are staring at each other in bottom river, at least for the moment, but this is the time period where BLG are probably at their strongest in this game, and I'd like to see them utilize it.
That minute that we talked about has elapsed, and a little more than. Kair has flash, Knight does not, and you'll notice how safe Knight is playing because of it, really respecting the space that Azir is able to create in the mid lane, and giving Guwon the chance to do whatever, whenever he wants. Right now, moving up to the top side, and will actually be spotted on some proactive vision placed by Shun.
Yeah, we see that vision priority come down, as you called out. Very nice to see Guwon on the top side here. It gives the Mbessa decent time to recall, but as you kind of notice on the top of your screen, Hoya with that teleport available and no TP for Bin means Shun starting up on these grubs. It's going to be a little bit more delayed if they do want to go towards it. For now, looks like they're going to be happy to, at the very least, give over one and not contest too much. So he looks like he's going to be able to pick up the first one at the very least for free.
Yeah, this was spotted. Again, vision play by our junglers, meaning that Guwon has access to this information, and just now is going to realize that he himself has been spotted, and Jenna Crystalera on the bot side is going to force an early cleanse. Flash into the Encore, gets flashed out by Viper, and it's a trade of summoners in the bot side, but a big win for BLG as they engage on the top side with their numbers advantage. Nice Poppy ultimate is going to reverse that for just a moment, but On's all the way up here, and Zhuo is not, giving BLG certain priority over whatever they want topside.
Yeah, it's actually a huge play for BLG. It's not just one grub that they end up taking, it's two. And so they're guaranteed to have two at the very least. And Guwon has no way to easily get into that pit to get the third. So for now, you actually are in a spot where you're just winning out for BLG. These are the fights we wanted to see them take and be more aggressive at. Shun, obviously, with that early kill, just gets to play a little bit more fast and loose around these objectives. Getting both summoners off the Jhin is a little bit of a compromise, but that's kind of what you expect when you see Bard roaming to the top side for a play like this. You need to just make sure you can get the most that you can. Depending on who gets this third Void Grub, that could actually be a massive win for BLG here. Guwon's on the bottom side.
Yeah, you're able to leave your AD carry alone against a hard-winning, double-engage ult bot side and have him live, get out with two objectives. If I'm honest, I think BLG might have been able to get a little bit more than they did, playing perhaps a bit respectfully into NIP right now as On continues to roam into the mid lane. The threat of this composition in the air. BLG can be anywhere at any time, and NIP are feeling it.
Yeah, you can definitely see them play with hesitation on a lot of their rotations. And a lot of that is because, you know, I keep hyping up these Void Grubs. Look at these two comps. Void Grubs are incredibly strong in this game. Both of these comps want to play side lanes for as long as possible to keep these 1v1s. Care has to burn the flash, but he does get himself out of there. Could have been a disaster if Azir falls, but now Dragon on the table and no mid laner.
China Crystalera is going to CC him for a long time, but the follow-up Tempered Fate gives just enough time for BLG to come over and answer back. Curtain Call actually connects to find Shun, and it's 1-for-1 with Assum trapped in the river. BLG could easily grab themselves another kill, but Assum, with a nicely timed flash, will avoid being knocked back by the Satchel Charge Deadly Flourish. Will hold him up for just a second, and the Magical Journey takes BLG all the closer. Fourth shot not even needed as Knight will collect the kill with a bouncing bomb. And up in the top side, Hoya not having a good time, will be flashed on and solo killed by Bin.
Oh, it's a disaster for ninjas in pajamas everywhere around the map. Assum has to burn his flash in that fight. He still gets tagged by the Deadly Flourish from the Jhin and gets taken down. Mbessa destroying this counter pick, up 10 CS on the top side, solo killing the Poppy. Everything is going the way of BLG. Dragon's still on the map, but it's going to be that third Void Grub picked up for BLG, I think, here, which is still on the map. Looks like they don't even want it still. They're just going to leave it, not even a priority for them. They are just so confident in their ability to play the game that they're leaving all these objectives up. It looks kind of bad for Shun at the start, but because they got so much out of Care before this fight even started, both the flash and the health bar, even though the Pantheon gets picked, they have so much damage down onto Zhuo that a 1-for-1 trade is really not all that bad in this instance, with that fourth shot tagging the Azir once again on the edge of the fight. Knight's zoning being so effective, and that flash forced out of Assum just becomes really easy to clean this up. And the reason this is so big for BLG is because it's gold going specifically onto Knight in the mid lane, who is going to be your side lane menace. Then you just get the unthinkable happening, and Mbessa solo killing the Poppy on the other side of the map. Hoya just way too over-aggressive, chasing him down, waits for the shield to decay, and just kills him. It's just a misplay from NIP across the map, and they are punished heavily for it.
Using the Steadfast Presence aggressively, a big sin in that matchup, and we tune back into live where a Tempered Fate has already landed onto a very cool Care. Whoa! Ends up using a nice Emperor's Divide to survive against all odds.
Care having to pull off some pretty big plays, but he might not even be safe here on the Azir. So we get some combat in the mid lane here with Viper targeted by Guwon.
Viper has everything. He dies with everything. I was looking at that going, he has Flash, he has Cleanse. What could go wrong? Everything could go wrong.
I was right there with you, Dia. I was like, oh, he's got everything. He should be fine. Care. Oh, just barely gonna live the spear. Coming in from Jun. Oh, no. It's a disaster for NIP. He dies to the afterburn, as you call out, and that's free dragon. Although Guwon going to be able to pressure it out for now, as Shun saying, yeah, you know, we're not even really all that focused on these objectives. We'll take the kills. We'll take the gold instead.
The Magic 1-for-0 looked pretty good for NIP, but turning that into a 1-for-1 a little bit more awkward. Getting the dragon, however, another turn in the favor of NIP. Their second dragon of the game. Gold lead is not crazy just yet. 2.1k in the favor of BLG, when that is clearly what they've been prioritizing so far, and that could be reversed a lot further as Finn actually is going to spot Zhuo on top side, but that will not stop this engage. In comes the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, which will go wide. Zhuo, still waiting on the Encore, is going to lock him up with the beat drop, and Bin 1v3, and not a whole lot of ways out, is going to go down.
Yeah, he's going to go down, and now going to potentially try and turn onto Guwon. Here he gets bursted.
Did not have a chance to play the game there. That was all CC the whole way. He was sitting there with no chance to do anything, and Care may very well feel the same. Didn't have Flash, but did fortunately manage to get away with the shifting sands, leaving BLG wide open for a mid lane tower take.
This is exactly what we talk about with Bilibili Gaming and why Shun has been so important towards this team. It's no longer waiting for your opportunity to arise. It's saying, this is my opportunity. I'm going to create it on the map with this Pantheon. It doesn't matter my top laner is getting caught. I can go and catch their jungler, and that means Rift Herald is going down in favor of BLG. This is already a 3k gold lead. There is no miracle steal incoming. It's level 11 for the Pantheon. It's a massive lead, and now 3 towers on the map with a Ziggs for the Bard to roam around even more. This is a fantastic game state for a Bilibili Gaming team that needed to get this lead.
And you're going to be able to use this Rift Herald realistically on a tier 2 tower. Knight's already positioned towards top side, and a single satchel charge is going to do that tower in. Surely it's just a matter of getting access to it, which opens up the Rift Herald to do some serious damage elsewhere. Open up a side lane, say where Bin might be, down bot right now, and make the game all the more complicated for NIP. Force NIP into an even more awkward situation. Like we mentioned, BLG's composition would be good at. Nice Mikhail's out of on. A little stop on the way towards his tower. Gets out of a fishing play by NIP.
Yeah, it's a good try. I mean, it's just the arrow for Mikhail's in terms of trade, so you're not going to be too concerned about that for either side with no objective spawning for over 2.5 minutes. It's going to be Knight taking that turret. You're going to be saying that a lot throughout the rest of this game. Of course, 2 of those Void Grubs going over to BLG does mean that they have the push power. And when you're talking about a comp with Ziggs and Mbessa and even Pantheon that can play the side lanes, that becomes even scarier. Shun and On now just going to continue to get their vision down. When you take a look at the map state here, it is going to be so tough for NIP to find any sort of forward progress. They just kind of have to wait out these objectives and hope you can scale into some of these Dragon team fights. And we talked about this comp. They do have some gold onto some important targets, but with Care being 2,000 gold down on tonight from all of the turret plates that he's been able to stack up, even Hoya being down on the Poppy, it's looking dire as we continue to go for these 5v5s.
I will say in the favor of NIP, for any one-game NIP hopers, they did get 2 dragons, which makes the whole scaling thing a whole lot nicer for them. Not because they're going to get soul early, realistically, but because BLG won't be able to get soul early. They won't even be able to get soul until very late, if they're winning the whole time. NIP have bought themselves quite a bit of runway with that. You just have to make sure that the gold lead does not change that. Grand Starfall onto the top side, and Hoya is absorbing a lot. That is not going to matter nearly as much.
Yeah, you're definitely right. It's not going to matter quite so much. No objective to even try and get priority over on the other side for NIP. So many resources put into killing that top laner, but again, what do you even take elsewhere on the map right now? BLG have done such a great job of setting up, but here's Knight.
When everybody on BLG can assassinate you from across the map, NIP know how to manufacture a situation where they get up close and personal. Knight going down, a big shift for NIP, and it gives them access to this mid lane tower, which they really want, especially because this whole time, Bin is hammering away on top side. Unfortunately, they will not get that chance as Assum is forced to flash away, flash forward from Shun, secures the kill, and now NIP got to get out of this curtain call as Guwon will manage to dip, dodge, and dive his way to not taking too much damage, while BLG reclaim control of the mid lane.
NIP have to force a push down the mid lane to try and get anything off of that great pick on tonight. It is a lot of gold into Assum's pocket, but he gives it right back with a kill down the middle. You know, it's still an overall okay play, but this 4K gold lead is not going anywhere, and these overstays are going to continue to cost them in terms of pressure on the map as we get a replay of what ended up happening here. Just gets tagged with the deadly flourish, ends up getting stunned, and look at all of these tools that have to be expended in order to try to get the AD carry out. So much damage coming down from the Pantheon, who arrives, and a spear through the heart of the Ashe is more than enough to be able to take down the ADC.
Oh my god, On goes in, he takes the journey! That looks too magical, but he will be able to walk this one a little further away at least. Mikhail's gonna be used once again. Flash stun Guwon into the wall, turns that around real quick for BLG, and now with Bin here as well, no way that BLG are losing that fight. No way that BLG are losing that dragon. They are taking whatever they want.
And that's not good for NIP. They need those dragons in order to have some sort of late game. BLG aren't even done. They're looking for Assum.
Oh, I thought he was alive, but he was dead.
Where did he go, Dia? I saw him and then he was gone. He just disappeared off the map. I saw a Ziggs ultimate and then no more Ashe. It's incredible just how fast that champion gets bursted down, and this is the problem. This is the problem with giving Ziggs tower plate after tower plate, with giving him so much gold, is that he will be an assassin on the map. BLG not only win the fight, they get the dragon, they stop the stacking, they have full control of this game. They're up 6,000 gold. NIP's win condition is dwindling away. And BLG just showcasing why they've been considered one of the best teams in the LPL. Their dominance over this rift is astounding, and they keep pushing it forward.
Just like we talked about earlier, On is everywhere. He is mirroring Guwon at every step. Zhuo going to be piled in with him as Bin does get engaged on the bot side. Unlikely to win this 1v2, and it will remain a 1v2 as nobody is around to help Bin. A nice pick going NIP's way does help.
I mean, it's more gold. That's certainly nice. Bin has quite a lot of it on the Mbessa on the top side. You're going to need a couple of more of those in order to make full use of it. What do BLG do with this topside pressure? Now Guwon's looking to punish On, but Guwon could be in trouble here with the rest of BLG coming.
Yeah, On is the one who punishes here. This Bard has been insane. However, it is going to be caught by the Encore with his AD carry down. BLG in an awkward spot. Do still have On somehow walking out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It could be worse for NIP. You look at a lot of these exchanges and you just kind of assume that the worst is going to happen. They're able to at least get out with some gold. It's gone from a 6K lead to 4K1, but uh-oh. Bye, Assum.
League of Ashe getting exploded when I think she's got at least a couple seconds more to live. That play did still go pretty darn well for NIP. They get the trade on Viper, they get the tower bot side. It is their first tier 1 of the game. And they get a nice little plate top side as well. In terms of, like you say, how plays could go, maybe it's not the best thing for NIP, but it's still, I'd say that's still play in the favor of NIP. They get a structure and a player. BLG just get a player.
I mean, there are worse trades to take at this point in the game. Certainly Assum would be the one that you would not want to sacrifice in this instance, with him having all of the gold on the side of NIP. What this essentially does is just get some priority onto the river for BLG in general. Hopefully they're going to be able to set up vision around Baron. This is likely going to be the major objective that pushes to the end of the game. On trying to bait Guwon. Does get the Q out of him as he happily magical journeys back over the wall. But again, that vision is just so tough to walk into. Look at the comp of BLG. Darkness is not the friend of ninjas in pajamas in this one. If they're going to have so much control over this river, it's only going to get more difficult to find a way for this Vi to find an engage.
One spotted bot side, which gives the opportunity for BLG to pull off a play onto Care. Out goes the Tempered Fate. And forces care underneath the tower. The satchel charge almost sure to do this one in, as there it goes. Another tier 2 claimed by BLG. They got what they came for. They Mega Inferno bomb to add insult to injury, and they get right out. That bot lane tier 2 looking mighty delicious right now.
Yeah, it's it's looking rough as Guwon finds the Mbessa down onto the bottom side. Again, it's really just about this river control. Guwon trying to get anything on the map in terms of setup. They have to make sure they're not getting, Baroned out. It's not exactly the fastest Baron in the world with Jhin on the other side, but certainly something that BLG are going to be happy to start up. Viper, though?
Well, Viper's dead.
He's alone.
Viper is fine.
He's fine. He's winning. TP!
And there's a TP. This play has gone more wrong than I ever could have imagined. Public execution on Assum. We'll take that Ash away one more time. And an ult from Hoya helps speed the disengage from BLG along. I stand by what I said. Viper should be dead right now. And instead, Guwon, Assum, and Zhuo are dead. If that doesn't say something about this game, I don't know what does.
Guwon fearing the 2-2-7 Jhin, who is completely alone in the jungle. I think the fear is what we talked about, the fact that they have no vision. Jhin could have very well had teammates behind him. Why would a Jhin be posturing like this if he didn't have teammates behind him? He sidesteps the Q, and at this point, Guwon's like, well, I guess I'll just walk away. He has ultimate. He has the lockdown for this Jhin, but they don't feel comfortable going for the play again, likely because they don't know who else is in the area. The Pantheon ultimate comes down, the crash comes through, and it's the indecision from NIP, perhaps some of the inexperience from some of these players that have overachieved a lot this year, but are not used to these big spots in the way that BLG is. The Baron has been acquired, 2.5 minutes on that Baron buff, 7.5k gold lead. They are just going to push down this mid and bot lane in terms of the duo push, and this could likely be game here if NIP have no answer.
Certainly having lost control in a pretty big way right there. Like you talked about, the confidence of NIP in this game surely shaken as the play from our larger perspective with full information that we have looked like a really good one. Didn't quite work out. Maybe they make another here onto Shun, who is mid lane, clearing out some waves, but Guwon is going on that long flank on BLG. This is going to have to be the play. This is going to have to be a game-winning flank from Guwon.
Yeah, and he's going to have to do it soon because I worry for NIP's sake that they might just be engaged on under their tower.
Zhuo is gone. Guwon is still walking towards the play. There's a full curtain call being channeled. Guwon is still walking towards the play. Assum is dead. Guwon has arrived at the play, and it is completely off screen as Viper finally is going to show up as Hoya dies, and Guwon is the last one left alive. BLG take everything while NIP are unable to close their jaws on a play fast enough. They're working on Nexus towers as Guwon is stuck under his inhibitor and dying for it.
Guwon going for the ultimate flank ends up finding the ultimate failure as BLG dominate their way to a Game 1 victory.
That was a clean closeout for BLG. Hard to imagine how that could have gone more wrong more quickly for NIP, as they actually had a pretty decent early game. They weren't winning the bot lane, but I would say that this looked really, really good up until inexplicably, after going 1-for-1, having some weird trades, NIP just decided, you know what, we're not confident in any of our plays anymore.
I have no idea what happened. This is a team that has struggled with their macro throughout this split, not to this extent. I mean, we saw 5 headless chickens on the Rift here today in game number 1 for NIP. They just had no understanding of where they needed to be. And BLG, you know, criticize their macro all you want. They're decisive. They make decisions and they go for them. And that was the big difference in game number 1 with tools like the Pantheon, with tools like the Bard to be able to make plays with so much early game pressure. NIP not being able to survive and respond, especially in their winning lanes, ended up really being the problem here.
Yeah, and it is exactly the way that BLG's composition was meant to function. They force decisions, they force awkward scenarios, they dogpile on top of you in the early game, in the mid game, and suddenly by the time we never get to late game, you've lost control. And that was certainly the truth here. NIP's composition still in theory functions great in the late game. It just doesn't matter because it never sees it.
I mean, yeah, if you draft a Azir and then, you have 2 winning lanes, you're like, okay, we just have to bridge that gap. Well, those 2 winning lanes are all of a sudden losing lanes. Your Poppy's losing to the Mbessa, your Ashe Seraphine is losing to the Jhin Bard, and a lot of that scaling, a lot of that stability that you're supposed to have, it's gone. There's no way to be able to play through the map here when the Vi can't really make any plays around the map. You essentially have 3 losing lanes in this instance. The moment that you start giving over some of those Void Grubs and don't really have any contest, now Ziggs has a 2k gold lead just because he's taken some towers. Yeah, that's a problem. There's not really a lot of ways on the map to be able to stop it. It just felt like a masterclass in a group ascend versus group perseverance type of way, and for BLG, they're going to be very happy with the way Game 1 played out.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what they would have expected, wanted, trained for as they came into this matchup. As excited as BLG were to play, as excited as Knight was to play against Zhuo, it is very nice to see them playing against each other. And like we said, it is nice to see that NIP are very positive coming into the day. But this is exactly how, on paper, Game 1 should have gone. It is how, on paper, all of the games should be going, and it is up to NIP to change that. They gave it their best shot with a standard composition in game number 1, a scaling composition. Now, do they change that up? 30k damage on Knight is crazy. I can't not read that. I can't not just read that off the screen. It's too big for me to not read it.
Look, I understand, Ziggs is a bit of a damage inflator. There is something to talk about in terms of these poke champions where they're just going to do a little bit more than maybe you would necessarily think. But can we say, certainly at this point, that Knight is the best Ziggs in the world? He's been doing this for years now at this point where you just can't give this guy this pick. It makes it so hard to draft against this team. If they're going to play like this in terms of their aggressiveness, it is so hard to break through. It is actually impossible. We wanted to see Knight on Assassins. He got one in this game. I mean, we're going to hopefully get the replay here a little bit later of Ashe getting hit with one Tempered Fate under, tier 2 tower and getting instantly obliterated by a Mega Inferno Bomb combo from the Ziggs. It's just impossible to be able to play that out if you are the ADC. And that was the only bit of gold on the side of NIP. Your top lane's losing, your jungle's losing, mid lane, of course, kind of got crushed here. Even the plays that you were making, they weren't going your way. I like the aggressiveness out of NIP, but they were often losing so much of it on the other side. Here's the play I was talking about, where it's just Tempered Fate under tier 2. Oh, I might be in some danger here. Ziggs Q, Mega Inferno Bomb, Pantheon Spear, bye-bye Ashe. It's all done and dusted. It's all you need. There's no counterplay options available. Nightmare game to be an AD carry.
Yeah, that Pantheon Spear was also a little bit of insult to injury. Also big praise to on this Bard. We talked about the pick earlier. I really liked how he looked on it, even if in that particular play he does sort of just watch his AD carry die from the other side of a bunch of soldiers. Bard looked pretty good in terms of the cross-map presence and plays, and by the time we got to the late game, everything looked good for BLG. I wasn't really thinking about this Jhin, but we got into the late game, and suddenly he was God. He was Thanos to NIP. In fact, everyone was, as BLG ran them over.
I mean, that's really the best way to put it. This was a stomp, as we see 4 members of NIP on the screen here for the late game base push. Just a lot of risks taken, and I think that is going to be my question here. Yes, NIP were able to take down Invictus Gaming in the play-in stage, but they got away with a lot of things in group perseverance against teams like WE and Edward Gaming and, of course, Thunder Talk. Are those things going to be as viable? I mean, these big flanks from Guwon were a staple of how NIP wanted to play the game in group perseverance, and as we saw, they just weren't working out nearly as effectively. That's going to have to change going into game number 2 when they have a potentially even harder hill to climb with a lot of picks still on the board.
Yeah, by the time that Guwon gets to the play, we were talking about it. I remember checking in with it as we were going over that team fight. But by the time he gets to the play is over. And that is a big difference in pace from what NIP have played against during the course of this split. What, like you said, they got challenged with by IG on their way through Group Ascend, to what they are now facing at the polar opposite end of Group Ascend. What was that guy's name? Goliath. That Goliath to Godzilla comparison really rings true, especially in Game 1, where NIP, we know they're a good team. We know that they are good enough to be in Group Ascend. They have made the cutoff for the bottom. but the top still evades them by a pretty huge margin. And at that very top is Knight on this monster.
Oh no, Knight getting a player of the game on Ziggs in a playoff series. I feel like I'm getting flashbacks for so many years here. It just feels so consistent with Knight. He continues to be somebody who is driving BLG. He is continuing to prove that he is inarguably, I think for me at this point, the best player in LPL history. And once again, he is stepping up and really looking at his buddy Zhuo on the other side.
Yeah, Knight is looking particularly good right now, and we'll see how Kman looks, because I'm not seeing Kman right now after we come back from the break.